Welcome to Sometimes There's Side Eye, a podcast about two friends having real and unfiltered conversations about dogs and people. Listen as we talk about our lives with dogs, training, behavior, share some laughs, and a whole lot of banter. I'm Heather.
And I'm Christy. Heather, what are we talking about this week?
Oh, I am super, super excited. And you know, when I'm excited, it means we have a special guest. This week, we are talking to Caitlin Wolfe of Wolfe Paw Dog Training. And she used to be in Arizona, but she is out of California now, or I should say again. And we are talking to her about separation anxiety. So, welcome, Caitlin.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, you guys. I'm really excited.
We are thrilled.
I'm very excited about this topic.
I know it's such a tough topic. This is not on the list. Christy, I'm doing it. I'm starting off. What is the
Should
proper
we
term?
start with
No,
should
I
we
want to
start
ask one question first. I want to
Okay,
ask
okay.
one question first. Do we still say separation anxiety?
Yes.
Okay.
Separation anxiety is basically the blanket term for it.
Okay.
Some people will refer to it as isolation distress. In my education and everything I work with, I say separation anxiety because
Okay.
that's what people know and understand and refer to. So it's all
Okay.
good.
So I don't want to start off and then be like using an improper current term. So that was why I was like,
Yeah.
no, I want to ask this
No,
first.
it's a good question. But yes, separation anxiety is
Okay.
A-OK and the term that I use.
Okay.
Well, we typically start by asking what dogs you live with and what your favorite thing about them is.
Yeah. So right now, we actually only have one dog that is truly ours. And his name is Bo. He is a 4-year-old Rhodesian Ridgeback, and we've had him since he was a baby, and he is my giant baby. My favorite thing about him, honestly, is truly his flexibility. And I don't mean agile wise, like he's the clumsiest dog in the world. More so his flexibility just in his temperament, personality. He is just your all around, like, go with the flow kind of dog. And I honestly chose him and worked with his breeder because that's what I needed in my life at the time. He is great. Like, if we're doing a 10-mile hike, he is there. He is up for it. He is ready to roll. And if we're having a day where it's like, I'm sorry, dude, the only thing I can offer you today is, some enrichment and like 10 minutes of training, he's like, I'm down. I'm going to sleep all day on the couch. So
That's amazing.
he's just great at on and off. If I'm like, hey, I need to take you with me to be a demo dog for like 4 hours today, he's like, I'm there. Just make sure to bring enough snacks.
Put me in.
And if there's a day that I'm like, dude, I'm really sorry, like, it's just not happening today, he's like, deuces, I'm sleeping. Like, don't even worry about it. So I love that about him, which is just so nice to have that,
Yeah.
mainly because my work outside of training, I'm a mom to two kids. One is a newborn, so our life is a little chaotic at the moment.
Yeah.
And I love that he can just go with the flow with us depending on what our day brings. So he's amazing. We live in a duplex type property, so my parents are in our front house, and so we share a backyard with them, and they have a shepherd mix who is 11.
Oh,
And so we take care of him a lot, obviously, and live with him basically. And his name's Grizzly, and he's a love. He's like your typical kind of grumpy old man who's like, this is my routine. This is what I do. Don't mess with it. Him and Bo get along fantastic. And I love how routine oriented he is because I just know what to expect with him.
steady Eddie.
He is super steady. Like, I know exactly what to expect. I know exactly what he needs. And he's just like, cool, you. I have my routine. And he's so independent. It's awesome. Like, he is the least needy dog I have ever
Oh, I
met
love
in my
me a
life.
non-needy
Yes,
dog. I sure
he
do.
is so independent. So those are my canine pals. And we also have a cat, an orange cat
Oh,
Oh,
named
does he
Tigger.
bring orange cat energy?
He's pretty mild orange cat energy. I'm
Oh,
not gonna lie.
mm.
I was kind of looking for a little more orange cat energy with him. Like, that's why I chose him. I was like, I could use some psychoness in my life. And he is pretty low key orange cat energy.
Mm.
Although he fits in well with our household, because I mentioned, Bo's not my most, agile. I shouldn't say agile. He's very agile. He's not graceful, I should say. Not
Yes.
graceful. And Tigger fits in well with that, because Tigger's the first cat I've ever met. I grew up with cats. I've been around cats a lot. He's the first cat I've ever met that does not land on his feet every time.
What?
He is a klutzy little boy.
No
And it
way.
cracks me up. Yeah, he is not graceful at all. So none of the animals in my house are graceful.
I feel like you might
It's
be living with my spirit animals.
And then to round out our zoo, we also have a leopard gecko. That is
What?
it's my
Oh
older
my
daughter's.
gosh.
She's my reptile lover. So she, we have a leopard gecko. Her name is Sheila.
Oh, hello,
Um,
Sheila.
yes, I'm actually recording in my daughter's room because it's the quietest room in the house, and so
That's
I'm
so
staring at.
great.
Sheila's like staring at me right now, like, "Did you bring some mealworms?" And I'm like, "Sorry, girl, it's not mealtime yet." Um,
I think we are gonna have to share a picture of Sheila like on our stories or
I
Absolutely.
will.
something. We've
I
never
will.
had a reptile.
I will send you a picture.
That's amazing.
After we wrap up, because she's super cute. And honestly, have nothing against reptiles. I've just never
Yeah.
really been into them, and I really had to conform when my daughter, decided that it is her true life love to have nothing but reptiles.
Listen, you
And she's
hoped for
awesome.
hoped for a child who would love animals. You just didn't expect it to be reptiles. You thought for
Yeah.
sure you're a dog trainer, it would be dogs.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And she loves dogs, but it's so funny. Dogs are like the lower part of the totem pole for her. She's like, dogs are
Wow.
great, but cats and reptiles, baby. That's
Wow.
that's her vice.
Wow.
Which is a funny combination, but it works for her. So
Hey, we do what works.
that's my chaotic zoo, both
I love
two-legged and
it.
four-legged.
Yeah.
I love it. So, how long have you been a dog trainer?
This is my, oh my gosh, okay, this is my 14th year.
Wow.
I started training in 2011.
Wow.
Yeah.
What made you start?
Crazy. I've always been a huge animal lover. I feel like every dog trainer says that, but it's true. We don't get into this for the financial goals.
No.
In high school and early college, I had it in my mind that the only thing I could do that involved working with animals was veterinary, and that wasn't something I was interested in at all. I was like, oh, I don't want to do veterinary. So I just kind of was like, I was just, my hobby will be animals. And I ended up, our family dog at the time, I went with my parents in high school to a PetSmart training class because we got a puppy, and we went to PetSmart, and I was like, oh, like, maybe I could be a dog trainer. That would be really fun. And I kind of thought same thing, like the only place you could train dogs was at Petco or PetSmart, which absolutely nothing against them. Awesome. But I was like, I don't know if I really want to work in a pet store kind of thing. So long story short, I ended up changing my major, doing animal behavior. I started volunteering at our local humane society. And then I was told through basically the director at the time at the humane society, she said, hey, we're looking for interns to do training. Let me know if you'd be interested. There's an application process. And it kind of stemmed from there. And then 2 years later, got my CPDT, and I've been training ever since. And then 3 years ago, I did my certification for separation anxiety. So now I do both.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind asking, how did you become interested in the separation anxiety specifically?
So kind of two main reasons. The first dog my husband and I rescued together had really bad separation anxiety. And basically, knowing what I know now, we did everything wrong
oh, don't you love it?
to work with it. But it was really tough. I felt, one, you just feel so bad because you're like, oh my gosh, like this poor dog is stressed.
They're struggling. They're struggling.
And it's also really frustrating on the human end of it too. We dealt with a ton of destruction, nothing to the point of remodel status, but constantly we did the whole crate training, we did all the things, but she would just bite the bars of the crate, howl continuously. And like I said, we did everything wrong, and I won't go
Mhm.
into those details. So had that in the back of my mind. Like when I started training a couple years later, I was like, wow, I'd really love to be able to work with this. And then my first probably 5 or 6 years of training, I had so many people that would ask me about separation anxiety. And I felt like that was the one area that I was like, I really don't feel qualified giving you advice because
Yes.
I don't know what to do.
Yes.
I still don't know how to do it. We were lucky that our dog, despite us doing everything wrong, she finally was able to get to a point where she was okay being left alone for
Mhm.
periods of time, and probably just a little bit of learned helplessness there.
Yeah.
Did that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I became really interested in wanting to be able to help people with that because it
Mhm.
continued being something that people would bring up. And I just did not feel that ethically I could give advice on it because I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I
Mhm.
ethically can't give you advice and or take your money for something that I don't feel
Mhm.
qualified to give you recommendations or training in.
Yep.
So I started doing research and I found the CSAT program, which is certification for separation anxiety training through Milena DiMartini, and she's phenomenal.
She's a
Uh,
pioneer.
I obsessed with her.
Yep.
She's also the sweetest human in the world. And her way of approaching separation anxiety is the same way she approaches how she works with people. And I just love that about her. And so I jumped into her program and I've been doing it for the last 2.5, almost 3 years.
It's amazing. I read her book because I too had a client that came to me and it was a puppy already displaying issues
Ugh.
and a breed that is known to have those issues. And I told the people, I said, I'm not qualified. Like, I know enough to maybe get you started, but I to support you in the whole journey. And the people are like, no, we want to work with you. And I'm like, okay, here's the deal. We'll try and we'll see. And if I feel like I'm not getting anywhere because I know enough to know that where we should be after reading her book, then I'm going to refer you out, which I would have referred them to you. So I think he did okay because he was a puppy. And then also he had some solid genetics behind him. But it took us 4 weeks to get 2.5 hours alone. And they got to go to church and they were so thrilled. And honestly, I
Wow.
cried because it is tough on the humans and it is tough on the
Mhm.
dog. It is rough stuff.
It really is. And I feel like and I will admit, I feel like with any behavior modification, there can be both struggles on the human end and struggles on the dog end. But I feel like with separation anxiety, it has equal parts struggle on the human and the dog
Mhm.
end. Because with things like reactivity, with resource guarding, and not trying to downplay those, I work with those a ton as well. And there can be varying levels of it, which can be very challenging to live with. But separation anxiety, for the human end, it can be so frustrating and isolating
Mhm.
because these
Mhm.
people literally they feel like they cannot leave their dog alone and they're stuck at home.
Mhm.
And they know, okay, if I do leave, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
The dog is either going to destroy something, the dog is going to potentially self-harm themselves,
Mhm.
or if they live in an area like an apartment or a condo or in a very urban area where you have a lot of houses close to each other, the dog is going to scream and howl and bark, and they're possibly going to
Mhm.
get complaints and all of this stuff. And outside of all those things, you feel absolutely horrible for the dog
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they are so beyond distressed. So, and unfortunately, by the time people come to me, it's not like it's only been going on for a week or two.
Yes.
They've likely been struggling with it for months.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, many of them are kind of at their wits' end.
Mhm.
And they're like, I don't know what to do. I can't leave my home. I'm close to being, evicted or having to get rid of my dog because my landlord is continuing to get complaints, all these things. And it's so hard because when I have these first conversations with people and they're at their wits' end, it's challenging because one of the things I need to, unfortunately, talk to them about is this is not a quick solution
Yes.
fix.
Yes.
Um, and to have that conversation with people that are so close to being at their wits' end, it's hard, and I feel for them. I do. I
Mm,
mean, I truly understand where they're coming from, and I feel like having experienced it on my own, I can resonate with them a little bit. I'm like, hey, this is hard. Like, I'm not trying to downplay that for you, and I sense your frustration, and I know how frustrating this is, and I know how at your wits end you feel. But
yeah.
unfortunately, this is not going to turn around and change in a week.
Yeah.
But there are, I can help you, and there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Hmm.
I need you to trust me. I need you to be willing to jump into this with me. And usually what I tell people is the more all in they are to the program and the recommendations I give them, the more progress they make
Mhm.
quicker, kind of in a long term. And that's because the number one thing people ask me is they're like, so how long is this going to take?
Oh, don't you love that?
I know. And it's the
And
question
I
I
get it.
always get.
I get it.
I
Yeah,
get it.
No?
And
that
I
makes
tell
sense.
people, I'm like, I wish nothing more than to give you a number right now. And I cannot.
Yep.
And let me explain to you why I cannot.
Mhm.
But I tell people, I'm like, the only answer I can give you to that, which is not going to be the most helpful, but it's the best one I can give you, is the more you are all in and following the recommendations that I give you in this program, you will make progress in the long run faster than you will if you are more wishy-washy with it. And sometimes being all in this program is not something people can do right away. So I'm very flexible with people. I'm like, hey, if you need a few weeks to get things situated, if you need some time to figure out alternative arrangements, whether that's if your dog is a candidate for a daycare program, if your dog, if you can find somebody to come sit in your house during times that you need to be away. If you have a great neighbor or if you have family that lives close, that your dog can be with them during times that you can't be home. I understand these are not things people are going to have solutions to in
Right.
24 hours.
Mhm.
And I try to give as much help with that as I can.
Suggestions, ideas.
Suggestions, ideas, being as creative as we can. Fortunately, right now, in the age post pandemic, a lot of people work from home. So that does give a little bit more flexibility in the sense of being able to suspend leaving our dog home alone for periods of time. But people, they're like, well, I need to go to the doctor. I need to go to the grocery store. I need to do
Sure.
this. I need to do that.
Yeah.
I'm
You need
like,
to live life.
You
yeah,
gotta
like
live.
I can't be at home all day, and I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not at home all day. And so I work with them to come up with solutions for that, because the biggest part to success with this program is, and success with separation anxiety is, we have to limit and ideally suspend our dog rehearsing this stress and panic and distress
Mhm.
when they are left alone.
Fully suspend them being left alone.
Fully suspend them being left alone until they can handle it. And when I say handle it, I
Hmm.
don't mean that they're not self harming. I mean
Hmm.
that they are content and comfortable being alone, not, oh, they only barked for 15 minutes this time versus 45. Like, that's still an issue. That's not going to get us to our goal. But for most dogs, little asterisk above this, most dogs, it doesn't mean that they're human or humans need to be the one that's with them. Most dogs just need a human. So it
Mhm.
doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you have to be the one there all the time. I actually, my most recent client, she lives in an area where there is a college 3 blocks away.
Oh.
And
Nice.
so she was able to coordinate having college kids come sit in her home during times that she needed to leave. And they were either taking online classes or it was between classes. And they would come and study. And basically, they didn't need to do anything with the dog. The dog just needed a human body in the
Yeah,
house.
that's so smart.
And he was great. As long as there was a human there, he was fine. And she loved it. I mean, yes, obviously keep in mind this for some people, this was a little bit of a financial commitment for her
Sure.
as
Yeah.
well. College kids need to eat. So it's not like they were willing to do this out of the goodness of their heart.
Right.
But for her, it was more financially feasible than doing full-time daycare
True.
and hiring a reputable pet sitter or a dog walker, because she
Mhm.
didn't need the dog to go for a walk or things like that. She's like,
No.
I literally just need somebody to sit in my home.
Just need a body.
I need a body
Yep,
in my
just sit there and read a book. I don't
um
care. Just be
and
there breathing.
that worked out great for her. And she was like, I never would have thought of that. Like, she's like, I was fully convinced that I was going to have to sign him up for full-time daycare or hire a
Mhm.
dog walker to come like 4 times a day. And so anyways, there's just, depending on the dog, there's creative opportunities no matter the situation. And so that's also what I help people with. And what I like to let people know is this is temporary. This is not going to
Mhm.
be your forever situation. You're not going to
Mm.
have college kids in your house for the next 10 years. But this is what's needed right now in order to make the most success and
Mm,
have your dog discontinue rehearsing the distress and
mhm.
Mm.
anxiety of being left alone. And again, it's very individual for the dog. Some dogs are not social with other dogs. So daycare
Mhm.
or being at somebody else's home that has other pets may not be an option. And I've worked with probably, I'm trying to think, definitely one, maybe two, if I'm remembering, that it wasn't just they needed a human in the home, it was they needed their human. And that's
Mm.
definitely the
Yeah,
most challenging in my experience.
that's
Sure.
tough.
Yeah.
And so those situations, we definitely had to utilize things like daycare, because as long as they weren't in their home, they were okay being in a daycare environment, but they were not okay being in somebody else's home. They were not content with somebody else being in their home. So
Mhm.
those situations definitely are the most
Ooh.
challenging.
That would be
Um,
tough. Yeah.
but yeah, so it's very individual, as is all behavior modification.
Mm.
Sure.
But I feel most for those people that are like, okay, we tried having somebody come and sit in the house and my dog still panicked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, okay, here we go. Okay,
Yeah.
plan B, plan X, plan Y. Like, here we go.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
bringing out the whole toolbox. Hopefully
The
it's a big
whole
one.
Really. Yeah.
the whole toolbox.
Yeah.
Yeah. You really have to have a full set of tools for this type of training. Because I know even my brother's last dog had severe separation anxiety. I lost a couch and a oversized chair,
Ugh, yeah.
um, and 3 dog beds and
Oh,
a
Marge.
couple towels, and
Mm,
yeah. Oh, Marge. And I wasn't even mad when I came in. I was overwhelmed because
yeah.
you couldn't see my floor, and I was very overwhelmed, but mostly I was like, "You had to be so distressed to
Hmm.
do all this damage." And what we found was I thought, like, "Oh, this is gonna be a problem," but at my brother's house, she was fine to be left home alone. She just
Yeah,
could
it
not
was just your
handle
house, right?
being home at anywhere other than my brother's house, which was so funny because he had only adopted her recently, and she was fine to be left home alone at his house, but nowhere else.
Yeah.
Sure
And
was
I'm
a
so
blessing
glad.
though that you could get that out.
Yes, and he was close enough that I could still dog sit her and then run her to his house on my way to work and pick her up on the way home.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you found that out. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm probably going to sound like a broken record by the end of this, but it is. I mean, every dog is so individual. And I think that's one of the most challenging things with this separation anxiety, because there's not just a blanket approach to it. And, there's some dogs that, even things that I'm like, oh, most dogs don't like this. I've had my one or two that I'm like, oh, you need this. Okay. Like, this is what we're going to do. For example, like one of the biggest, I think, common fix-its out on Google Trainer with separation anxiety is to put them in a crate. Put them in a crate so that they don't destroy your house. Totally understand where people are coming from.
Yeah.
Crate training. And I'm not anti crate training at all. All my dogs have been crate trained. But again, crate training is not a one size fits all. And with separation anxiety, crate training is actually one of the things that I typically don't push and or recommend people utilize a ton with.
What?
Yeah.
I am shocked. I thought for sure, because I was
Christy
planning
loves
on
you. Christy loves you.
I was planning on like a secondary question. It's not on the list, but do you ever have cases where you don't recommend crate training? Because
No.
I know I
lot
had a
of them.
foster who had separation anxiety, and we did all the things, all the crate, and she ripped her face apart and
Yeah.
she went to the bathroom on herself because she was too old to hold it and all sorts of things. And I finally just let her go in the house and she was fine.
Yep.
The more I tried to restrict her, the worse things got.
Yes. And yeah, and again, I don't like to give ultimatums or majority whatnot, but a lot of my separation clients, I actually encourage them, we get them out of the crate in the early stages of our program working together. And people are so panicked to do that.
Sure.
And they are so scared to do it.
Society
And
says crates. Society
yes,
says crate, crate, crate.
yes,
I am
yes,
a crate proponent because I've had dogs who fought and wanted to kill each other. So for
yes.
me,
And that's
I
what
have issues.
crates are so useful in so many
Yeah.
situations.
Yep.
But in separation anxiety, they are
Yep.
one of the last things that I turn to. And they are one of the first things that I actually try to encourage people to take a break from and try an
Interesting.
alternative.
Very
And
interesting.
the reason why is a lot of dogs that suffer from separation anxiety can also suffer from what's called confinement anxiety. So the more you confine them, the more panicked they can be. And what I try to tell people is I'm not telling you to take your dog out of the crate and leave them free rein in your home.
Right.
That's
Right.
and I think that's where a lot of people go when I say that.
Yeah.
And so I make it very clear. I'm like, before you panic, that's not the goal. We still typically want to give some type of restriction in their freedom in the home. Obviously, this depends on a person's home layout, how big their home is, a lot of it's going to be individual. But usually I'll tell people like, we can utilize baby gates, you can utilize a X pen, you can utilize even just closing internal doors. So your dog has freedom in the main parts of the home, like a living room, family room, but they can't go into bathrooms, bedrooms. And a lot of times giving them a little bit more space and a little bit more freedom makes a huge difference in their ability to be comfortable being left alone. And I also make it clear to people, I'm like, I'm not telling you to take your dog out of the crate and then you're going to leave for 2 hours. Like that's not happening here.
No.
Yes.
You're going to leave your dog out of the crate, but one, you're barely going to be leaving. When we talk about leaving during this program, I'm talking about you're going on the other side of your front door and staying there for 10 seconds and coming back in.
Right.
And when you do leave for quote longer periods, the first couple times people do that is I'm actually on Zoom in their home and I'm watching their dog the whole time. And so I send them a little text that says, hey, you need to come back now. So if I start seeing those beginning stages of those warnings that they're getting a little itchy, they're getting a little uncomfortable, I text the owner and I'm like, hey, it's time to come back. And they're usually like at the end of their driveway. Maybe they're sitting in their car. Maybe they went like one driveway away. So it's not like they're far at all. Basically just out of sight. And so that's what I try to comfort people with is, I'm not telling you to take your dog out of the crate, and then you're going to go away for 2 hours and you're going to come back to this catastrophe.
Yeah, you're not going to give them the chance to burn the house down while you're
No,
gone.
like we are doing this, we are doing this slow. We are doing this where everybody's going to be comfortable. And with separation anxiety, and this is just how I function as a trainer as well, I don't force them to do anything. And so I've had some clients that are really, really nervous to get rid of the crate. And I'm never going to say like, well, you need to do it or I'm not helping you, kind of thing.
Right.
That's not my approach. I will tell them, I'll be like, okay, let me know what makes you uncomfortable about that. Let me explain why I'm suggesting it. Let me tell you what it's going to look like without the crate. Just like I explained, you're not going to be leaving very long, so on and so forth. And if they're still really hesitant with it, I'm like, you know what, it's okay. Like, let's keep going with the crate. But I do just want to let you know, if we're still struggling to see some progress, this may be why. And I just want you to keep in mind in the future that this is something we can potentially explore.
Yeah.
Because in my experience, giving anybody an ultimatum of what to do with their dog when it comes to training, you're not gonna do well. They have to opt in themselves. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. And so I need to make sure that they understand and that they're opting into it and not just doing it because I'm giving them no other option but to do that.
Yeah.
But almost every single dog that I've gotten away from the crate, the owners are like, I literally never would have thought of that. And it made such a difference. And I tell them, I'm like, this doesn't mean you can't ever use a crate.
Right.
It just means that for you leaving, a crate is not going to help you. You know, you can totally, if you still want your dog sleeps in a crate at night, that's fine. Because you're right there. They know you're there. A lot of times that's different. Or if you need to, like you brought up, Heather, if you live in a multi-dog home and you need to utilize a crate to feed your dog separately, or you use a crate because you have a home with children and sometimes you need your dog in the crate so your toddler can be a menace. You know, I'm not saying you can never use a crate, but I tell people, as far as you leaving them and putting them in the crate, that may not be your best option. And there's alternatives so that everybody can be successful and comfortable in these departures.
Are there things you recommend that people do to support their dogs before issues arise, or things they can do to potentially prevent them?
Such a good question. And so before I explain, my general answer is unfortunately no. And I'll explain why. So separation anxiety is actually the most researched behavior in dogs for probably the last 5 years. Yes. But we still don't have a clear reason, like where it stems from and what causes it. Because there's so many
Which
different
is very
factors.
frustrating.
It's very frustrating, especially being a separation anxiety specialist. It's very frustrating to tell people, like, I actually can't tell you why this happens or how this happens.
Yeah.
But what I can tell people is it's not because they never left their puppy alone. And it's not because they let their dog sleep in their bed with them. And it's not because they snuggle their dog or that they give them attention and affection when their dog is nervous. That has not caused it. And I can, without a doubt, guarantee that to them because the research shows that those do not go hand in hand. That I on a non-data basis, my own experience, I have worked with a number of separation anxiety clients that did leave their puppies alone for periods of time, that did, quote, everything they were supposed to. They crate trained them. They started leaving them alone. They gave them enrichment. They made sure their needs were fulfilled. And they still ended up with a dog with separation anxiety. Versus I've worked with a number of clients on a non-separation anxiety basis that have probably never left their dog alone. And their dog does not have separation anxiety. And they're working with me because they want to teach their dog to heel or walk on a lead, or, all these things. So those things don't go hand in hand. So when people come to me and ask me that question, like maybe they've had a separation, they've worked with me with separation anxiety, and now they've gotten a new dog and they want to make sure that, this dog doesn't have the same separation related behaviors as their previous dog or their resident dog did or does. Honestly, the number one thing I tell them is don't stress about it, because there's
Yeah.
honestly nothing statistically you can do to prevent it.
Yeah.
They are either unfortunately going to experience it or they aren't. And I honestly, my own opinion, this is not data supported, so don't quote me on it. I think genetics has a big role in it.
Yeah.
Some dogs just are more prone to anxiety in general than others
Yeah.
are. And so, some dogs are just more anxious and unfortunately have a harder time being alone. Some dogs are just a little bit more comfortable, confident, and secure, maybe more independent too, and are a-okay being by
Yeah.
themselves for periods of time. The one advice that I do give people, if there is, whether it's a puppy, whether it's a new rescue, is if they can, to not jump into the deep end and, the first time they leave their dog, leave them for 6 to 8 hours.
Right.
If you can start kind of small by doing short, like 20-30 minute increments and working your way up just to see how your dog does. And I feel like that can help. Not necessarily, it's not going to make a difference if they already have separation related behaviors, but it at least kind of eases the process into what being alone looks like.
Yeah.
So that's usually the only advice I will give people. But otherwise, I just tell people, I'm like, just try not to stress about it, because unfortunately, there's not a clear and concise, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And I feel like the more the owners stress about it, that's probably going
Yes.
to make things worse one way or another in general.
Do you see breed tendencies? Like so the puppy I was working with is a Greater Swiss Mountain Dog. And when I looked up and then I did speak to his breeder, it's there in the breed. They talk about it. So like when you talk about more anxiety breeds, I'm like Border Collie. Immediately I'm like herdy breeds. Those are the type of things that pop into my mind. Whereas, of course I'm going to say, but you don't normally hear about Rottweilers having separation anxiety. That is not common in the breed. So do you see any kind of relevancy there?
Yes and no. So I definitely, I do see a lot of breeds that are known, and I don't really necessarily want to say they're more known for anxiety. I know that there's plenty of breeds that
Yeah.
are a little more predisposed to being anxious. Like you just mentioned, you got Border Collies, any of your herdy breeds, they're just, they have that. More so, I see it in breeds that are more, what's the word I'm trying to say? They have more of a genetic component to needing, being more like handler. They need their person. Breeds like herding breeds are so genetically predisposed to working with their human and following direction from one specific person. And so I feel like sometimes these breeds can have a harder time if they are experiencing separation related behaviors, because they're like, okay, I've been bred for centuries to be next to you at all times, and you're telling me that I have to sit at home for 8 hours while you go to work? Like, absolutely not.
Like I have a job to do.
Yeah, like I will admit, I have yet to, and I've only been doing this for 3 years. So I'm still more of a novice when it comes to separation anxiety. I'm sure some of my colleagues in the CSAT world have worked with them, but I have yet to have a separation anxiety client that is like a Shiba Inu, an Akita, any of like the Spitzy, more
the
kind of
Spitzy breeds,
cat-like breeds.
The breeds that are,
that is
genetically a little bit more
interesting.
independent in my research and experience.
That is very interesting.
That makes
So
sense.
I'm sure that they're there. Sure, I could text some of my
Of course.
CSAT friends and they'd be like, oh, 100% I've worked with
Oh,
them.
yeah.
But
Well, for sure,
they
because
But that's not the bulk of what's coming in.
not the bulk of what's coming.
right. Like
Um,
every breed has extremes. Right.
yes.
Right.
I also feel like anything, it goes with the trends of what's trendy right now with
Oh, for
breeds.
sure.
So, like with other things, a majority of my clientele lately are any of the doodles.
Yeah.
Because not because they're more predisposed to separation anxiety, but they're the most common breeds right now.
Mm.
Yep.
You know, the Bernedoodles, the Golden Doodles, the Labradoodles, the anything doodle. That's probably 75 to 80% of the inquiries that
Wow.
I get. And again, I don't think that those breeds are more predisposed to separation anxiety. I'm not trying to tell people not to get them or, you're going to have to contact me if you get one.
Right.
But I just feel like they're the most popular right now. And
Mhm.
so you're going to see more of them just because it's what majority of people
Mhm.
are acquiring right now.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think we would say, like we say about constantly on the podcast, is do your research and make sure that if you want a Labradoodle, that you are going to someone who is paying close attention to the Labradoodles that they are producing. And
Yes.
they are
Mhm.
supporting you and they are paying attention to genetics and temperament and all the different things. Because if you want to do anything to stack the deck in your favor, if you are going to a breeder, it is to go to someone who is paying attention. It's
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
a recipe for perfection, but at least you are potentially stacking the deck in your favor, if at all possible.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. And I would, the only thing I try to encourage people is just be open to the fact that if you do end up having a dog with separation related behaviors, is reach out to somebody as soon as you notice them.
Yes.
Because as soon as you notice it, whether it's a puppy, whether it's a dog you've just rescued, the sooner you reach out for help, the more the easier it's going to be.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Because just like with any behavior, the longer our dogs get to rehearse it, the stronger it
Sure.
gets.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so if you've had a dog for 6 months or a year or plus that has been rehearsing this distress and panic every time you leave, it's most likely not getting better and potentially getting worse. And if it
Yep,
is
for sure.
getting better to your observation, it's probably not because they are getting more comfortable being left alone. They are just suppressing how they're feeling because they realize nothing's going to change and they get into that state of learned helplessness. And in my experience, that's temporary. I've had clients that are like, well, they were really anxious being left alone. And then 6 months later, they started being okay with it. And we were good for a few months. And then we moved. And
Mm.
Mhm.
now things are back where they are. Or we had a baby and now it's worse than it ever was, or whatever not. Our neighbors started construction on their house and now our dog is back to freaking out. So, majority of the time, doing it in a way that just suppresses the behavior, it's going to be a temporary fix. So that's all I encourage people to do is the second you see it, reach out to somebody because it's going to be less of an investment, both time and finances, if you reach out sooner than if that behavior continues being rehearsed for an extended period of time.
Yeah. Can separation anxiety be cured?
Yes. Blanket statement, yes.
Wow. I love that
um,
answer.
Blanket statement, yes. And now I'll go
I was
into
not expecting that. I have a big old
yes.
what?
Yes, but it's going to vary based on the dog, which
Yeah.
again that gets into the nitty gritty when people ask me how long is this going to take, how long am I going to need to work with you, and really what I tell people with that second question, like how long until my dog is cured or how long until they're no longer separation anxiety. And what I tell them is at the end of the day, similar to reactivity in the sense that I explain this to people is yes, I like to say that they can be cured in the sense of you're going to be able to leave your house. You're going to
Mhm.
be able to continue increasing how long your dog is left alone. But at the end of the day, is your dog ever in the future going to experience separation anxiety again and potentially have a little bit of a regress? There's always that possibility.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I say yes, they can be cured in the sense of things are going to get better. And my goal is always you don't have to see me or work with me ever again. um, but if you have big life changes, like you move, you
Yeah.
acquire another dog, you add to your human family, sometimes the the separation anxiety is almost like a dormant thing in their
Mhm.
mind, in their brain. So sometimes it may spark back up, but that doesn't mean it's going to go back to where you started. It might just be a
Yes.
small little setback. And the great thing about those small little setbacks is now you have the tools and you know what you need to do, and you're like, oh cool, now we can just jump back a little bit, like we know how to process this, how to work through this, and we'll be okay.
Mhm.
And it's usually a shorter time period until you're back to that nice space you were before the little setback happened. Kind of similar to reactivity, where it's like, yeah, you can get to the point where you no longer need to have this huge amount of distance between you and another dog, or you and their trigger, whatever their trigger may be. But at the end of the day, if your dog, gets bombarded by an off leash dog, or you move to a new area that is way more dog friendly than they were
Mhm.
originally used to, there might be some minor setbacks, but it's not going to mean that they're back to that full blown reactivity that you started with. But a lot of my clients, when I check back in with them months later or they reach out to me, they're at the point where they can be gone for 6+ hours and have had no
Wow.
no issue. So I consider that a cure, I guess, for what I refer to as a cure.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's really all people want. They just want to be able to comfortably leave their home and not worry about, is my dog going to be okay?
Yeah.
Right.
Um, and for me personally, I feel like being able to leave your dog for 12 to 14 hours a day is not realistic for any dog. Whether they have separation related behaviors or not. I feel like if you are a animal owner, a dog owner, we shouldn't be expecting that our dogs can be alone for 12+ hours a day. That's just not realistic without somebody coming in to check on them, unless you live on a farm and you have a livestock guardian breed who their whole job
It's
is
working.
is working, and they have a bucket of food that they know how to ration because that's what they've been genetically bred to do. Yeah, you can leave them probably for like 3 or 4 days and they will be a-okay. But living here in California in this nice urban area, those aren't the dogs I'm working with all the time.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
that's not your norm. So yeah, I tell people, I'm like, yeah, when I refer to your dog being cured, I mean that you can go to work during the day. You can take a day trip down to the beach and come back and your dog is going to be okay.
So I feel like we kind of already touched on this, but do you find that owners need support during this process in addition to the dog? I just want to say I feel like obviously because as you were talking about it earlier, I was thinking the stakes are so high. And although there are other behaviors that the stakes are really high, there are management options that are easier in those behaviors. Whereas in this situation, like there's not a lot of management options that are simple. And so if you just want to talk about it, that's just what kept running through my head. Like the stakes are so high with separation anxiety.
100%.
And nobody is lining up to take these dogs, these separation anxiety
No,
dogs that didn't work out in another
no.
home. I feel like I can address a lot of behaviors in my home, but
Hmm.
when Jackson showed a teeny tiny bit, like I was like, "Ooh, is that gonna turn into separation anxiety?" And
Oh,
it was
yeah.
just that he needed to get into a routine, but there were 2 instances that I thought told Heather, "Absolutely not. I'm not keeping this dog if he has separation anxiety. Like, he needs to get out of my home."
100%.
And
And This may sound horrible to say, so I don't take it the wrong way, but I wouldn't want a separation anxiety dog again. And I work
Yeah.
with it. I
Yeah.
work with it full time.
Yeah.
It's tough. Do I have the tools to know what to do? 100%. Do I want to do that?
There you go.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yep. Yep.
Who wants to do that? But yes, so 100% I feel like in my experience, separation anxiety related behaviors are where owners need the most support, which is why I feel like working with a CSAT is the best route, because so much of our education and training is on how to support the owners, not just how to work with the dog. Because I feel like in the animal world, some of us that work with dogs, we're great at working with dogs, but not all trainers, not all, behavior specialists are great people.
It is true.
And you 100, like this, working with separation anxiety related behaviors, you need to be a people person just as much as you need to be a dog person.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
in this program, I don't actually physically work with the dogs. I do this 100% remotely. And so I'm never actually physically touching the dog or anything like that. I am only viewing them via Zoom, all those things. And so 95% of what I'm doing is working with the person.
Mm-hmm.
And some trainers absolutely cannot do that. And all
Mm-hmm.
power to them. It's not for everybody. Just like there's certain areas of behavior that I'm like, no, thanks, not my cup of tea. It's 100% working with the people and supporting them, because they're the ones doing the work. They're the ones in the trenches day after day that are needing to change their routines, change their lives a bit, and they're the ones that are struggling really hard. Their dog is struggling too, don't get me wrong, but they're the ones that are having to basically have a hard talk about, yeah, you can't leave your dog alone. This is not going to get better. And that's a really hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And they need that support, and they need you to be their cheerleader and to hold their hand and to get them closer to that each marker and eventually that finish line. And what I tell people is, I'm like, my goal is that you're not going to work with me until your dog can be left alone for the period of time that you desire them to be left alone. My goal is that you work with me until you feel comfortable and knowledgeable in how to keep going on your own.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you the tools and the support to get there, but I'm not gatekeeping anything from you. I'm showing you how to do all this so you can be the person that does it. And you can get to the point where you're no longer needing my hand. You may just need me to be there in the distance. You may just need to check in with me every few weeks. There's varying levels of how I support people long-term in this program. And so I have some clients that they really need a lot of hand holding in the beginning, and I 100% do that for them. And then my goal is that you phase me out to the point that you don't need me anymore at all, because I don't want to work with you for 6 to 9 months.
Right.
Like I feel like if that's the case, that I'm not doing my job of training you how to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And so
That makes sense.
that's always my goal. So yes, 100% they need a lot of support. And in all the areas of behavior that I work with dogs, separation anxiety is where I work with the humans way more than I work with the dogs. So it's definitely different in that sense.
So then what type of tools do you commonly use for this kind of training? You already said Zoom, so we know that one.
Zoom. Obviously, being a reward-based positive reinforcement trainer, this is actually the one behavior modification that I don't use treats for. And
I get that.
I say that in the sense that we're not doing this in a, okay, you're going to walk out the door, you're going to walk back in and give your dog a treat. And then you're going to, that it's not going to work that way. Kind of two main reasons for that. One, a lot of dogs, when they are experiencing separation related behaviors, food is the last thing on their mind when they are distressed and anxious. So you can fill up the tastiest Kong or the most delicious topple that you can come up with. and you can give it to your dog and you can walk out the door and you can come back 3 hours later and that will be untouched. And your
Mhm.
dog will be covered in drool, panting like a maniac, all these things. They don't care because when they
Mhm.
are distressed, food is the last thing on their mind. So one, there's really no point in utilizing.
Yeah.
And two, what can happen if we do utilize food in this context, we can poison it and it can be not useful in other ways that we do need it, like for other training. So
Such a great point.
again, you get the topple ready and you give it to your dog. All of a sudden, your dog now equates that topple with you leaving. And so the moment you pull that topple out of the freezer or you grab the peanut butter jar and you start filling the Kong with it, you may notice that your dog is starting to pant and they're starting to pace and they're
Mm.
getting anxious because they have associated that treat or toy or enrichment with you leaving. And now, unfortunately, that tool is poisoned to them because it
Mhm.
means scary things. And before this gets in the wrong context, part of this program is also making sure our dogs' needs are met. So I do encourage the use
Mm.
of Kongs, enrichment, making sure their physical needs are met, all these things, but not in the association with the human leaving. We want to make sure that their needs are met because if you have a dog that is mentally under enriched or physically understimulated, yeah, they're probably going to have a harder time being left alone, especially if they're already experiencing these anxiety behaviors. But we're not going to have it in the same time frame of, okay, you're going to give the Kong before you leave. Nope. So part of what I encourage people to do is when they're doing these short absences is not to offer anything. If there are toys out or if there were things out prior to you starting the training or starting your homework, that's okay. But do not specifically bring anything out or offer anything to your dog during the training time or right before you
Mm.
start start the homework or start the training. So the tools that we use, like I said, obviously Zoom, and it's purely desensitization. And so we're just slowly exposing our dog to short absences at the level they can comfortably handle. And so we are really relying on, there's a lot of education for the owners of what to look for. So body language, is your dog, what do they do when you walk to the door? What do they do when you touch the door handle? And I'm training my clients to make these really detailed notes to add to their spreadsheets that they are sending me so that I can see like, okay, so the dog seems okay with the walking to the door, but the second you touch the door handle, that's where we get a little itchy. That's where we get a little, so we got to work on that a little bit. And so it's solely just working, keeping them under threshold and working at the level that they can handle.
Mm.
And that also means that there's going to be a lot of ups and downs with the variability that we're working with. We're not going to continue each day making things harder. We're going to have
Mhm.
some easy wins in there so the dog doesn't, okay, every time we do this it gets harder and I don't like it anymore and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And so sometimes people are like, wait, yesterday you had me do 10 minutes and today you're only having me do 2 minutes. Like that was a typo, right? I'm like, it was not a typo.
Yep.
Yeah.
We need those easy wins so that our dogs are not continuing to potentially reach their threshold and experience any trigger stacking. So that's why I said there's a lot of education and discussion with the humans of what this is going to look like,
Mhm.
because it's normal mentality for us to be like, wait, we should just keep going, right? Like we did 10 minutes today,
Right.
so tomorrow we're going to do 12 or 15, right? I'm like, nope, but here's why, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Some of the training is kind of counterintuitive because you do think I should give a topple to entertain them. I should give treat. Thank goodness I did not have dogs with separation anxiety, because guess what I do when I leave my dog? I sprinkle treats in his crate for him. Now he sees the treats being broken up and he goes and waits in his crate because he knows I'm leaving. My
Right.
other dog, I would go and reach for a bone, and she was like, "Oh, you're leaving. Okay." Or she'd see me, like, grab my purse, and she'd wait for her bone because she's like, "You're leaving. This is what we do."
Yeah.
And I totally made those routines without thinking I
Mhm.
was preventing something from happening.
But I'm glad you brought that up because making those routines isn't a bad thing, especially, if your dog doesn't experience separation anxiety, those are a-okay routines to make because it's
Mhm.
predictable for them and dogs love predictability.
Um,
And so my dog who does not experience separation anxiety, I have a phrase every time I leave the house. I'm like, see you later. And he knows the second I say, see you later, he goes and he either goes and wanders into his crate, which we leave open, or he goes and lays on his bed. He's like, deuces, nap time.
Yep.
But for a dog that does experience separation related
Right.
behavior, if you say see you later every single time, they're going to be like,
mm,
holy crap.
Yeah.
Like,
it's happening
and the
again.
world is just crumbling around
Yep.
them. So, in general, saying those things isn't a bad thing, but we do
Right.
need to be mindful of it if we are working with a dog with separation anxiety. The
Yeah.
final
For a
tool that we
dog we don't
utilize,
know. Or a
100%.
dog we don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
100%. I will say the final tool that we utilize before I forget is I will encourage a lot of my owners, clients that I work with to invest in some sort of camera so that they
Mhm.
can observe their dog during these
Yep.
short absences. And luckily, in our age of Zoom and so many things being
Yes.
virtual, there's so many options now for that, which is great.
Yes.
Mhm.
And the options are not crazy expensive like they
Nope.
used to be. So when I say invest, I'm not talking hundreds of dollars. I have a little list of links that I'll give to people just to give them, they don't already have something, and they're anywhere from like 20 to $100
Mhm.
depending on
Mhm.
what kind of features you want. But usually when I say that, people automatically jump to like the furbo.
Yeah. No, that's
uh,
not what we're talking about.
which, hey, the
You
furbo's great,
can use
nothing
it,
against
but
it,
yeah,
nothing
Yeah.
you don't
against
have
it.
to.
No, but I'm like, furbo is not your only option. There's tons of
Yeah.
much less expensive
Yeah.
options, but I do
Mhm.
encourage people to do that because that way, when you get to the point that you are doing longer durations of absences, it allows you to observe your dog during these times, which not
Yeah.
only helps me when it comes to you making the notes of what you observed when your dog what or when you were absent from your dog, but it also allows you to be like, okay, this is our first day doing 2 hours, which
Mhm.
Caitlin let us know this is where we're at. We're doing 2 hours, blah blah blah. But it allows people to check in and just see how their dog
Yeah.
is doing. Like, oh, cool, Fido's still sleeping. Awesome. And then they're not out to dinner or at the grocery store going, oh my God, what's happening at home?
What precious heirloom have I lost?
What am I going to come home? What am I going to come home to? And a lot of the tools are great because a lot of the cameras are awesome because I'm able, as their trainer, they can give me access to kind of log in remotely as well. So when I'm doing my session with them, and I've had some clients where we're at the point where they're gone 3 to 4 hours, their dog's perfectly fine. So I'm just like periodically checking in on their dog to make sure and do my little notes, not having to be on Zoom the whole time. I can
Yeah.
just log into the camera app or whatever it is, all the different ways you can do it. So it makes it convenient for me as well. So
Yeah, technology is definitely our friend when it comes to separation anxiety.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. And so, yeah, a little bit of my job is also teaching people that may not be so tech savvy to
Yes.
be a little more tech savvy.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. I
I
hadn't
had
thought of that, but yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yes. Which also, I mean, I get taught as
cli
well because I've worked with some very, very tech savvy people, which I love. And they actually give me some recommendations. They're like, oh, you should try this camera, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, tell me more
Oh,
about it.
Oh,
But
I had a
then,
client, she paid for one on just so I could go and set up her camera for her.
oh, how sweet. So those are the tools. I don't want to say it's easy because there are minimal tools, but it's more extensive in the behavior modification
Mhm.
type tool that we
It's
utilize because
it's
it's very
definitely time
individual.
it's definitely time spent and minutes and hours. That's your investment. And then the emotional bandwidth that it takes more than you going and buying 15 different tools to train something, leashes, harnesses, all this different stuff. Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And it is something that can't be fixed with a prong collar or
Yeah.
a shot collar. Like that's not,
Yep.
it's not going to give you any results. And we're very much like use tools within reason, whatever you're comfortable with, as long as you're not harming the dog. But in this case, there's
You don't have
nothing
a
that's going to
magic
get
pill.
you faster than just patience and kindness and working through the whole process.
I will say you just brought up a word that triggered another thing I wanted to super briefly bring up, Heather. You said magic pill. And I will say that
Yeah.
there's many cases that Western behavior medication and working with a client's vet is going to be a huge part of this training process.
Absolutely.
And so many dogs that I will ethically, I do not recommend medication. I'm not
Right.
a veterinary behaviorist or
Right.
vet, but I do support my clients in giving them the recommendation of, hey, I think this is a good time to loop your vet in
Yes.
and discuss the option of medication for your dog.
Mhm.
And I will say that's a conversation I have super, super early in this process of working
Yeah.
with clients, whether or not it is warranted for their dog. I like to have that conversation when I first start working with them.
Yep.
Just so they have it in the back of their mind and it's not a shock to them if I do bring it up and then they feel like I've bamboozled them.
Yeah.
I like to bring it up and just say, hey, I just want you to keep this in the back of your mind. I'm not recommending it. I'm not telling you what to do. And I'm not giving you any examples of medication that you should utilize because that's not my lane and I stay in my lane. But just keep it in your mind that this may be an option and I may down the road recommend that we loop your vet in if we feel that more support is needed.
Yeah, and we're pro anything that's going to help you and the dog. So,
100%. Yeah.
if that's medication, I mean, my dog with separation anxiety many moons ago, she was on medication. Sometimes we all need something, right?
Absolutely.
There
So,
may not
yeah,
be a magic pill, but there are
right.
anxiety
There are
pills.
pills.
Yes. And I make it
Yes.
clear what I refer to people, what I mean when I'm talking about behavior medication. Because a
Yeah.
lot of people, I think the first thing that comes to their mind is sedatives.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's typically not what I'm referring to. Our goal is not just to make your dog comatose.
Right.
We're typically talking a maintenance medication,
Yeah.
something more
Yeah.
long term. Sometimes a sedative can be helpful if there's times that an absence absolutely needs to happen and they're not at the point that they can handle it. And so that sedative just gives a little bit of temporary support, but it's not something that I encourage people to utilize routinely.
Yeah.
Because it can cause some setbacks and the goal is not just to medicate them to make it so they're not aware that they're being left alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, the goal is to change how they feel about being
Right.
left alone, not to make them so doped up that they can be left alone.
Right.
Instead, if you work to change their state of mind about how they feel about being left alone, that is a foundation that then you have to work off of, even if you have setbacks. You know what to do to sort of work through that. So if medication is required to get you to that point, okay. But I understand what you're saying. You really want to change what the dog's feelings are about being left alone.
Right. And in probably I would say like half the cases I work with, medication is a great tool that helps us. So it's
I can
awesome.
believe that.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. And it's cool. A lot of the times, one of the benefits of clients coming to me after they've been dealing with this for so long is a lot of times they may already be on medication or they are already open-minded to utilizing it because they're so fed up and at their wits' end.
Yeah. I can believe
So
that.
it's not something I have to do as much convincing as I do with other behavior modification. And yeah, it's great. And a lot of vets are way more well versed and we're able to get that medication support on board pretty early. And vets are much more knowledgeable in what medication is most helpful in these situations. So it's not always needing to utilize a veterinary behaviorist. I love them. I wish everybody
Mm-hmm.
I wish everybody with separation anxiety could utilize one. But I understand that they're definitely a bigger financial commitment than some
Yeah.
people are able to make. They're also typically have a really long wait list because they're such a
Mhm.
specialized field, and not everybody has the ability to wait 4, 5, 6 months or more
Right.
to be able to see
Mhm.
one. So I always encourage people, start with your personal vet, and I will give you other options if you want to utilize a veterinary behaviorist. But oftentimes we have success working with their own vet
Mm-hmm.
to begin with. So that's great.
Because chances are, if you go to your regular vet for a dog that's known to them and you're like, hey, we're having it, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah.
Because they know your dog.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I read, we're taking up a lot of your time here, so we'll wrap it up. But I did read a statistic the other day, and that there's only 89 veterinary behaviorists in the entire United
I read
States.
that too.
Yes. It's
What
a
the
super
what?
specialized
I
field.
had no idea. I mean, I knew in Arizona it's very limited. We used to have one,
Mhm.
I believe we have two now. And I guess if I did the math, I could have figured that out. But 89, and
Yeah.
dog behavior is becoming more of an issue. People need more tools.
Yeah.
So I love hearing you say that you and your CSAT people are resources that people can utilize in combination with their veterinarian if medications are required. That it's sort of like a starting point where it makes it more financially available to them, and it's a specialized, like, you are specialized in this. And so I really love that from a resource perspective for people, and that they have more availability to sort of get where they need, or at least have a really solid place to start, because that's tough.
I know it's such a specialized field, and I understand why there's so few, because it takes so much schooling and such a financial
Yeah.
commitment to become a veterinary behaviorist, and the financial gain they get from being a veterinary behaviorist
Yeah.
does not equate to the amount they
No.
have to invest
Mhm.
into it.
No.
So I wish there were more, and Arizona is so lucky to have two. There's a lot of states that have zero. I think that I tell people too with veterinary behaviorists, if they're able to invest in that, is majority of them, especially when it comes to separation related, you don't need to physically go and see them. They will see you Zoom as well, virtually.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
for people
Yeah.
that they live in a state, or if they're in an area where the closest veterinary behaviorist is hours away, I tell them, I'm like, you can still work with them virtually, because especially with separation related,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a behavior you're going to bring into the office and be like, here,
No.
watch me walk out the door.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so
um,
true.
it's very much a environment related behavior, so they're not going to need to see you in the office for the most part. And a lot of veterinary behaviorists work with their clients remotely with that,
Yeah.
and typically they will just get you on that medication support, and then they'll refer you to a CSAT or somebody to do the actual training component with. They'll just
Yeah.
be your medication go-to person, which is great.
Yes.
There's a lot that still needs to be researched about it, and there's a lot more education that I still
Mm-hmm.
feel people need. And I would love if that education turns more to the actual long-term success of
Mm-hmm.
helping these dogs, and not just, oh, get a crate that they can't break out of.
Mhm.
Which
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
is
I get that.
oftentimes I'll see recommended. Yes.
Yeah.
And again, I understand where people are coming from. I never fault anybody for trying those methods, because I get it. I totally get it. But just
Yeah.
like with anything, that's not a client problem, that's a education. We need more
Yeah.
education on it.
Yeah.
And clients
Yeah.
need more support.
And kind of going off of that thought of wanting more education, is there, kind of wrapping up, is there anything that you really wish everyone knew about separation anxiety?
If I could make sure people knew one thing, is that separation anxiety in our dogs, just like in humans, it's a true panic disorder. Your dog is not willfully choosing to make your life miserable.
Yeah.
They are not doing this so that you will come home sooner. There is not any ulterior motive. Cognitively, they're not capable of that. They're not looking guilty when you get home because they
Yep.
know that they destroyed the sofa and that they weren't supposed to. They are, air quote, looking guilty because they are used to you coming home and being upset and they're trying to appease you. But no, they are not doing this by choice. They are truly panicking. And when people understand the fact that their dog is truly panicking and that they are not doing it out of spite, there's a lot more empathy and understanding that happens. And people become a lot more open minded to working on the root of making their dog feel more comfortable.
Yeah, I would say I was surprised when I showed people the video of what I came into with my brother's dog, because it's hard to understand until you see the mass amount of destruction. But I was surprised at how many people said, "Did you just kill her? Or did you yell at her? Did you what did you do?" And then, but in the video, I say, "Oh, Marge, okay."
Yeah.
And they're like, "How were you so calm and kind to her?" And I
That's
said,
you.
but
It's
I was
also
like,
you.
I felt like, man, she must have been so panicked, and to
Yeah.
imagine her for 9 hours while I was gone at work being
Mhm.
that amount of panicked.
Yes.
That was hard to sit with for me.
Oh yeah. And again, that's just unfortunately that's where media has brought us so many good things, but
Mhm.
unfortunately, one of the negatives is the guilty dog. And
Yeah.
it's I think we as trainers know that it's dogs don't have the cognitive ability to feel guilt, but it's so much easier on a human standpoint to put the fault on the dog than it
Yes.
is to be able to say, okay, here's what I need to do, and here's the tools to do it. It's so much easier to have the mindset of, well, they know what they did is wrong. When I come home, they look so guilty. So they know that they shouldn't be destroying things, but they
Mhm.
still do it every time. I don't understand. I come home every day. They should know that I always come home.
We've
Again,
really
it's
humanized them
easy.
too.
Yes.
Well,
We
as a human,
do.
I
We do. And
understand that
yeah.
you come home every day, so they should.
Right. Our dogs don't have that capacity to do that.
And we want
And
an answer. So like
Yeah.
we want a little answer of why is this happening? So we give them an answer as to why is
We
yes.
insert
whereas
an answer for them.
it's much harder for us as humans to say this is just who they are and we have to figure out what they need to support that and fix it. We just want to be like, "Oh, they know what they're doing," and then you just sort of explain it away.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's there's again, and it just comes back to just more education needed. So
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
not trying to go on a rant about it, but it really just needs more education and more actual resources that are going to help, not
Yeah.
just continuing to pass the blame because there is no blame.
Yeah.
Nobody did
Yeah.
anything wrong.
Yeah.
You as the owner didn't do anything wrong. You didn't cause this. This is just what your dog is experiencing. And don't finger point, don't feel guilty yourself. Just here's what we need to do and here's the tools to help you. End of
Yep.
story.
Yep. And that is the perfect place to land.
That is perfect. Yeah.
I really appreciate you being willing
Thank
to
you
talk to
so
us
much.
because I
Yeah.
think it's a really, really important subject.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have someone who is specializing in it that's willing to come and talk to us. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I love talking about this subject, as you can tell, for how long I've rambled on about it. So
That's
thank you
okay.
both.
Ramble too.
Thank you. Thank you both. I really
Yeah.
appreciated being invited.
If you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and share us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, come on over to Instagram and engage with us at Sometimes There's Side Eye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.